Hi everyone and welcome back to You Know Who. I'm your host, The Last Angry Geek. Well, it's time for another adventure with everyone's favorite Time Lord, as on this week's episode of Doctor Who, we take on scared little children, evil cabinets, and lumpy dolls on Night Terrors. This episode opens with a young boy named George who lives with his mother and father in an apartment complex. George asks his mother to enact a ritual of turning on and off his lights 5 times to keep away the bad things in the night. As she leaves for her job, she and George's dad discuss the need to send the nervous George away for help. As George pleads for someone to help him, the Doctor is hit by a psychic force that tells him someone on Earth needs his aid. The TARDIS materializes on Earth at George's apartment complex, and the trio begins to look for a scared little boy. They're all here, the great British characters you've grown to love. The easily offended mum, the old lady obsessed with following pointless rules, the bastard landlord. In fact, here's a few of the other British characters you can expect to see this season on Doctor Who. The Cockney chimney sweep. Hello, governor. Tuppence for a swab. The Cockney nursemaid. Hello, you and your Mabel get ready for walkies. The Cockney internet reviewer. Hello, what's all this then? Seems we can only do a Cockney accent. Badly, I might add. Eventually, the Doctor catches sight of little George and sends Amy and Rory to look elsewhere. A ride down the Tower of Terror elevator seems to dispose of our resident lovebirds, just as the Doctor bluffs his way into George's flat. Alex, George's father, mistakes him for a social worker here to help. As the Doctor enters the apartment, the little old lady from earlier is sucked into a pile of garbage. Alex admits George is emotionally detached. Not crying or laughing, only ever afraid. Alex admits they've thought of sending him to get help. The Doctor promises he'll do his best for George as Amy and Rory awake in a strange dark room. The sound of the elevator starting up causes George to startle and knock over his lamp. The Doctor introduces himself while Amy and Rory enter a strange kitchen. A copper pot that's made out of wood, an overly large lantern, and a giant glass eye are just a few of the things they find. The Doctor learns that George has been told by his mother and father to put anything that frightens him into his cupboard. The Doctor goes to open it, but is interrupted by a knocking on the door. It's the British landlord and his dog who push around George's father for rent money. The Doctor enchants George with his sonic screwdriver and then scans the cupboard.
Let's open this cupboard, eh? There's nothing to be... Off the scale.
Alex returns and the Doctor stops him from opening the cabinet, claiming the monsters are real. Rory is continually frustrated by the lack of doorknobs. There appears to be no way out when he and Amy hear a child's laugh. As the Doctor makes tea, Alex tries to throw him out, but the Doctor won't go. The Doctor tells him that George's fears were amplified by the cupboard, summoning the Doctor here.
George sent a message, a distress call, if you like. Whatever's inside that cupboard is so terrible, so powerful, that it amplified the fears of an ordinary little boy across all the barriers of time and space.
We cut back to the little old lady, also in the dark house, and being followed by the same shadowy figures that have been following Amy and Rory. The couple then come upon a life-size dummy with a rather large head, a head that moves as they leave. The Doctor continues to be befuddled by Alex's photos and debates opening the cabinet. As they decide to take the leap and open it up, the landlord in his apartment sinks into his carpet as if it's quicksand. The Doctor opens the cupboard but finds nothing other than a dollhouse and some toys. At this moment, the Doctor bolts for the photo album. The Doctor questions Alex about George, and under pressure, Alex realizes he can't remember George's birth.
So look, Claire's not pregnant.
What? Not pregnant?
Well, of course not. Claire can't have kids.
Say that again.
Turning their questioning upon George, the cupboard bursts open and swallows up Alex and the Doctor. Amy and Rory are met by the landlord, pursued by the dolls. He's caught by them and turned into a doll himself. Amy and Rory then barricade themselves in a room as the dolls swarm. Alex and the Doctor awaken in a dining room. They realize they've been shrunk into the dollhouse as Amy and Rory are doing their best to fight off the dolls. The Doctor realizes that Alex and his wife's strong desire for a child called something to them, and that everything George is scared of, including people and sounds, are sent to the dollhouse. Amy and Rory decide to turn the tables on their pursuers by opening the doors and making a run for it. It doesn't go well. That's the problem with being on a hit show. Sooner or later, you get a big head. Sorry. Attacked by the dolls themselves, the Doctor realizes the sonic screwdriver is useless against the wooden dollies, and so he skewers his pursuer with a giant pair of scissors. As they run, the Doctor puts two and two together and realizes George is a Tenzu, a type of alien that adapts to its environment. In this case, becoming the child a barren couple always wanted. But George's psychic powers are subconsciously protecting him from his fears. The Doctor calls out for George, who hears them from his room. Rory shows up being pursued by doll Amy and her friends, as George opens the cupboard and is sucked inside the dollhouse as well, stopping the dolls. For a moment before they turn on him. The Doctor gleams that George was afraid of his parents sending him away. Their rejection started this cycle of terror. Alex questions how they can keep an alien for their son, but his love propels him to save George from the dolls. Embracing his son and telling George he loves him causes the psychic powers to break down, freeing everyone and sending them back to the apartments. As George's mom comes home, she finds the Doctor play with Alex and George.
Might pop back around puberty, mind you. Always a funny time.
Everything for this family is sorted as our trio of heroes head back off into time and space.
Or do I mean awful? Well, Night Terrors is in the book. Let's take a look and see if it led to pleasant dreams or tossing and turning in hopes of a better episode. I've got to stop running these metaphors into the ground.
I have to say a lot of Night Terrors just didn't work for me, and I think that's because the story of a scared child being rescued by the Doctor has been done to death since the show came back on the air, starting with Fear Her. In fact, most of this episode seemed like a rehash of Fear Her, which I never cared for to begin with. There's a child terrorized by mysterious forces that eventually spirit the Doctor away until said child overcomes those fears. This story is almost a cliche at this point. Also, it was very predictable. As soon as Amy and Rory woke up in the mysterious room, and given that we knew giant dollies were going to play a part in this episode from the previews, I called it that they were in a dollhouse. It's also been done in Doctor Who before, most recently in the Tom Baker audio adventure, The Hornet's Nest. And what is with those dolls? They could have used a bit of explanation, something that this season has been ridiculously short of. I mean, what was their motivation for attacking everyone? Were they the dark manifestation of George's id? Or were they all made up of people George banished into the cornfield? I mean, dollhouse.
And where the hell was Eliza Dushku during all of this?
Aside from poorly motivated monsters and a few too many modern stereotypes, I did like the rapport that developed between the Doctor and Alex. How the Doctor would lead him into agreeing with him and then immediately flip the tables and disagree with Alex's previous agreement. That provided some fun. Amy and Rory were wasted in this story, though. They had no real purpose. They get sucked into the dollhouse, but nothing is resolved until the Doctor himself gets in there. We even get the doll transformation on the landlord, making Amy's capture and transformation seem redundant. That having been said, the transformation sequence was a genuinely creepy bit. This episode tries to be scary, but I found the dolls more ugly and crude than intimidating. I think this episode would only be scary if someone had a natural fear of dolls.
It's not that the story elements didn't work for the plot, it's just that I've seen them done elsewhere before. I found this to be unoriginal, but I will give it points for a good message that unconditional love is all-powerful. I give Doctor Who Night Terrors 2 out of 5 TARDISes. And we'll see you back here next time for The Girl Who Waited, here on You Know Who.